invisible, especially for young homeowners, that your property tax is rolled into your mortgage. And so you don't actually get a separate bill for property tax. The bank adds to your mortgage payment, holds it in escrow, and most banks keep a little extra, so that there's always extra in the escrow.
Because property taxes keep rising.
Because property taxes keep going up. And then if they do, you get this notice that your mortgage went up. But most people don't necessarily connect that to the fact that their property tax went up.
Right.
So it's in many ways, especially for young people, it's almost an invisible tax. They don't see it because they don't write the check. On the other hand, for seniors who have paid their mortgages and now they own their house, well, every year they get this property tax bill. Remember, it went up 146%. Well, so you bought your house 30 years ago. You scrimped and saved. You paid the mortgage. You now own the house. You probably made improvements. In those 30 years, it's probably been reassessed. So the property tax goes up and up and up. And I can't tell you how many seniors. And remember, Pennsylvania has 17.4% of our population. They're senior citizens.
Right.
So you've got these folks that have paid all their bills and followed all the rules and been fiscally responsible, and now they're on a fixed income. And yet that bill goes up every year by way more than the amount of inflation and by astronomically more than any increases they're getting in Social Security or perhaps a pension. So they wind up having to take out a loan to pay the property tax bill. And just about the time they pay it off, the next one comes.
Right.
So you don't own your house.
Correct.
You are a tenant. The government owns your house, and you have to keep paying the government for the right to live in the house that you paid for and improved and did all the upkeep on. And if that senior has a problem, perhaps they have a health issue, perhaps the roof decided to leak, and so they needed to take out another loan to fix the house, they can wind up losing their home because of a property tax. Now, I get asked all the time, well, what are the statistics? How many people in Pennsylvania? The state doesn't keep those numbers.
Right.
So you have to go county to county to county to county to look at those numbers and then try to add them up. So I did a Google search. Berks County came up first. I didn't cherry pick Berks. It just popped up first in the Google search. And I thought, it's not one of the teeniest counties. Like there are some counties that have 2 red lights in the whole county.
Sure.
So that's not probably going to be real indicative. But neither is it Philadelphia, which is so much bigger than everybody else that, again, it won't be indicative. So Berks County is a mid-sized county in the state. Last year, in 2017, 171 homes were sold in property taxes. There were 3 different sales. There was one in December, one in June, and one in September, I believe. One of them was what's called an upset sale, where the property is directly sold to another person. If that property isn't directly sold, then it goes to what's called a judicial sale, where the county actually takes the property, or the municipality takes the property, and then they sell it out from under the homeowner. Why don't we take just a little break before I get into those numbers and let our viewers have a little bit of information.
Yes, Peg, why don't you tell the viewers where can they find out more information about you? If they're interested in making a donation, where can we go to do that? Because after all, look, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, we don't have big money lobby support behind us. And you don't have big lobby money behind you. We're very much grassroots, true grassroots. So, it's going to take money, whether we like it or not. We have to get out there. I always like to say, saying we have around here, you either have to be a fighter or you have to fund a fighter. There's no other way to win these battles. So if people want to help with this issue, with your campaign, where would they go to do that?
Absolutely. The website is PA4PEG.com. And the Facebook page is Facebook PA for PEG. There's a Twitter account at PA for PEG. So, and there's actually a phone number that you can call every day. It's called Peg Talk, and the number's right on the website. And every day I leave you a message and let you know who we are. You can donate right through the website. It's a secure server, or you can send your check to the P.O. Box 404 in Johnstown, and that address is on the website as well. I get asked all the time, why are you doing this? I have 6 kids, and now I have grandchildren. 3 of my kids are getting married this summer because, I didn't have anything else to do. So I have 3 weddings this summer. But I look at that generation and I think, what kind of a world are they going to have if we don't stand up and protect them? The lieutenant governor is a very, unique position because it's the second highest elected office in the land, so it's an amazing bully pulpit. It is the opportunity to speak to issues. It's the opportunity to command attention. You are the president of the Senate, so it is the opportunity to help direct and shape policy by using parliamentary procedure on how the discussion goes. And of course, the lieutenant has the governor's ear as well. So there's a real opportunity here to make a difference if we stand together to make that difference. I hear all the time, oh, I'm with you, yes, and I'm behind you, and they are as far behind as they can get. So it's really important for each of us to step up to the plate. Every donation is appreciated. If you can give $5, thank you so much. If you can give 500, thank you so much. Whatever you can do, the important thing is to do something. And that includes financial support. So I do encourage you to visit the website and follow the directions there for making a contribution. And I appreciate the opportunity.
And so back to this, I'm going to talk about another aspect of the property tax as it relates directly to the lieutenant governor's seat, if we get time for that in a little bit, and just to talk about how important that seat really is. But on with we were discussing the people losing their homes to
Right.
sheriff sales.
And
you were
what does
talking
that mean
about
in inequity? So here we are in Berks County, 171 sales. In the ones where I was able to see the assessed value of the home, of the 171, about 13% of them, the homes were worth less than $10,000. The property was worth, which means it was probably a garage or a shed. But 57% of them sold for less than $10,000. So that means that the homeowner lost the difference
Right.
between the assessed value
Directly.
and the sale. Now, if it's sold for more than if it's sold for more than what the county takes, the homeowner gets the difference. But most of the time, it often is not. So let me give you what was a middle example. It wasn't the most egregious example, and it wasn't the smallest one. It was kind of in the middle. The home was worth about $53,000. That was the assessed value of the home. The property taxes that were owed on that home were $4,035. The minimum bid in the county was $7,800 because the county adds sales tax and the deed transfer and extra fees. So you had to give the county $7,800. Basically, all of that went into the government, and that's what the property sold for, $7,800. So that person owed $4,000 and paid $53,100. Now the government didn't take the extra $49,000, but the person paid it all the same because they lost everything that they had put into their home.
Exactly.
Well, what other bill in your life, if you owe $4,000, you're punished $53,000? Remember, that's the assessed value. So you could have probably sold that property for more than that. That's the lowest amount. So what other bill in your whole life has that kind of an inequity between what you owe and what you're forced to pay? No wonder people rush to pay. It's like holding them hostage because they're losing, especially for seniors, the only thing they still own.
Exactly. For
That's
most
a
people, a
right.
lot of people, it's their biggest investment.
Exactly. And and that's not the most egregious example. You know, I saw in Berks County alone homes that were assessed at over $100,000 that were sold for like 28. Well, what was the person supposed to do? Like now they have nothing to start over or move forward. And you know, it isn't that most of these people are, well, I just didn't care, I didn't want to. For many seniors, they're just stuck.
Right.
There's no way they can keep up. Now, if you take that Berks County number and you start, multiplying that times across the counties, there are about 10,000 properties a year that get lost in this, that get sold in Pennsylvania. Now, I know you actually looked at my home county.
I did, Peg. And I looked at your home county right today before we came to this, and I came across a January of this year article by Channel 6 WJAC, must be a local
It is local
station
TV
out
show.
there. And this is word for word from the article, so I'm reading directly the first paragraph. It says, Johnstown, out of an estimated 87,000 properties in Cambria County, approximately 12,000 are behind on taxes, and about 2,100 are up for sale. That's one county. We're talking 14%
And that's not a big
are
county.
behind on taxes in Cambria County. That is absolutely staggering. And 2,100 in one county alone makes me think maybe the 10,000 figure is a little on the conservative side. Maybe it's really more than that.
And unless, I didn't have time to look at all 67. I will
Right.
tell you, Cambria County, that's for the steel mills, so a lot of people lost
Sure.
their jobs, and they got another job for, a third of what they were making, but their bills didn't change. And Cambria County has a high percentage of senior citizens as compared to many of the other counties, so in some cases, people are just walking away because they don't know what else to do.
We certainly saw evidence of that when we were out there. We did a lot of door knocking in the Johnstown area, and we certainly, came across that situation, for sale sign after for sale sign after for sale sign, and we always like to talk to add to the unfairness of the property tax, the loss of home. It's certainly in no way, shape, or form really based on anyone's ability to pay, and really everybody pays a different rate. You probably pay a different rate than I do, and I'll give you a little bit of example. We do town hall events all over the state, and one particular town hall up in the Poconos, we had a woman, a single mother, who came up and she said, look, I make $50,000 a year. My property taxes are $7,000. This woman's paying 14% of her income towards her property taxes.
One tax.
Now, meanwhile, I have a friend, a very good friend, who actually supports property tax elimination. He's a very well-to-do individual. He's deep into six-figure income. He's paying probably about 1% of his salary, and he lives in a very, very, very valuable property. We'll just put it that way. So I'm not trying to make a class warfare argument out of this, but how is this fair? How is this just when we have a single mother making $50,000, 14% of her income going towards her property taxes? And so that just sort of shows a little bit of the disparity.
Exactly.
There are many factors that we don't have time to go into here that contribute to this. But
Well, remember, there's 500 school districts.
Sure.
And they all set their own tax rate, and they can raise, like we looked at South Fayette, they raised it 7 times in 10 years. So 10 years ago, your rate was here, and now it's here. Well, that really affects your ability to pay, and that has nothing to do with your income. It's how many mills on the property you already own, and you're almost punished for improving it or
Right.
for making it better, because it actually mitigates against you doing that. And that, your income may not have gone up, and for a lot of seniors, their income went down.
Sure.
Especially, the reality is women live longer than men, so you have a lot of widows out there. My mom is 88. She has friends who are also in their 80s. They are widows. The only thing they have is their home, and they're almost trapped in it because they can't sell it, because the property taxes are actually, in some cases, working against people buying it.
Sure.
And they're taking out these loans every year to try to not lose the only thing of value that they have. That's a system that is inherently broken. And so we need to look at other ways that make more sense, that are more fair, that are more productive, that hold districts more accountable, to fund the schools in a way that does that, which is what you tried to do in Senate Bill 76.
Yes, and we will definitely be discussing that here shortly. One last comment, and we'll move on to the next question. Regarding the income tax, everybody hates the income tax, nobody wants to pay that. But just to contrast that to property tax, do you realize that we've only had one relatively small income tax rate increase in Pennsylvania in the past 25 years?
Well, of course. When the income tax is raised, every paycheck you get, you see income tax.
Right.
So everybody sees it all the time. So when they're going to raise the state income tax, first of all, the whole state goes, wait, what are you doing? Why are you raising that tax? Wait, let's look at other options to do that. But property tax is school district specific, so it's a much smaller pool of people. It often happens, people aren't as aware that it's happening. It's harder to keep a handle on it. It's a more hidden tax because it's often wrapped in a mortgage. So it's a lot easier to raise property taxes than it is to raise income taxes. There's a reason the income tax went up once in 25 years, and property taxes go up year after year after year after year.
Right.
There's a reason for that. And so it's one that we need to, wait, of course it's easier to keep raising property taxes than it is to raise the income tax.
Sure, and the state has not had a problem spending more and more and more money over those years, with that one single rate increase in the past 25 years because of the nature of the income tax increasing naturally without having to increase the rate constantly. Unlike the property tax, really the opposite is true. But let's go on to the next topic, local control. We hear that from our opposition all the time, we can't shift away from the property taxes, and they put this fear-mongering out there. We're going to lose all of our quote-unquote local control that we currently have over our school districts. Now, as a former school board member myself, I have my own thoughts on that, but I'm looking for your thoughts. Where do you stand on local control?
I'm actually for local control, and I wish we had it, but we don't. When I first started debating Common Core, now almost 5 years ago or more, in Pennsylvania, time flies when you're not having fun too,
Sure.
yes, in Pennsylvania, the State Board of Education, which is an unelected body of bureaucrats, tied every school district in Pennsylvania to an entire revamp of the educational system. They tied us to Common Core standards that they hadn't even seen yet because they were not published when they signed the contract. And what they said was, okay, well, the local districts will pay for it. So we have a federal government that in Pennsylvania, according to the census statistics, they contribute about 6.5% of the educational costs in Pennsylvania. They control over 80% of the decisions that are made in our state through all of the contracts that we sign, through how the title monies work. That's a great deal if you're the 6.5% person.
Sure.
And then you have, when parents want to get involved, and because I work all over the country, I hear this all the time, parents or taxpayers go to the local school board and say, we have such and such a problem with whether it's a curriculum or a funding mechanism, and the local district says, oh no, that's not ours. You need to go to the state or the federal level. And so the people go to the state level, and then they get to the state level and they're told either, well, no, so we have local control, so you need to go back to the local level, or, well, that's a federal thing, you have to go to the federal level, and if they go all the way to the federal level, they're told, no, that's a local thing, you have to go back to the local level. So it creates a shell game that average parent can't navigate their way through. And since most people, I'm a policy wonk, so like I actually have read school codes and work my way through all that kind of stuff. Most people don't. They look at what's going on and they want to fix it, and then they get caught in this shell game between who's really in charge of what. And unfortunately, local control right now means that the unelected State Board of Education makes policy, and the local school board gets to figure out how to pay for it.
Correct.
Whether it's the pension, the local school districts didn't create the pension debacle.
Absolutely
They
not.
just have to pay for it.
That's correct.
They didn't create the health care, all the retiree health care cost debacle,
Right.
but they have to pay for it. That's not what any of us meant by local control. So step one in actually restoring local control is to get rid of the state board. That's a separate issue, and we're going to be talking about that in future weeks, but it's not the property tax issue. To raise it in the property tax debate is a red herring, and it's one that we need to be aware is a red herring.
Right. So clearly, if we had local control, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Exactly.
So obviously, it's not working. We have one last topic I'd like to bring up and talk about. I mentioned earlier, what is the importance of the lieutenant governor seat? The property tax issue, because it is so big and so onerous to so many people, it pulls off the charts. Every year we see it used sort of as the carrot on the stick by every politician. Now we even have politicians running for Congress, if you can believe that, talking about the state level property tax.
Which doesn't mean there's...
So how does this tie into lieutenant governor? Well, back in 2015, November of 2015, we had our first ever vote on SB 76 in the Senate, Pennsylvania Senate. These politicians that use it as a carrot on the stick, some of them, after campaigning on it, having their picture taken with the sponsors and co-sponsoring the bill, they turned on their word. They voted with the lobbyists and the special interests who oppose us, and it was a tie vote. We thought we had the votes, but it ended up as a tie. Now, under such a situation, the lieutenant governor gets to cast the deciding tiebreaker vote. And our current lieutenant governor, Mike Stack, not only cast the deciding no vote to stop SB 76 school property tax elimination dead in its tracks, that session, he had the nerve to laugh about it. Now, to me, it's not a laughing matter. It's not a laughing matter there's 10,000 people losing their homes every year. It's not a laughing matter to me as a middle-class working guy. To many Pennsylvanians, this is serious, serious business. So that is why the lieutenant governor's seat matters so much, because in that particular case, he was the deciding factor. So with that being said, SB 76, we talked about school property tax elimination in broad terms. Now I want to ask you specifically about SB 76. What are your thoughts on that bill?
I actually read it. I have this thing that I don't comment on legislation that I haven't read. So I read every word of that bill. It was really well thought out. Was it perfect? No, there's no such thing as perfect legislation. You do the best you can with what you have right now.
Sure.
I really liked the language in there to preserve whatever local control we have left. And even the language attempted to strengthen the whole local control. And I really liked that because it was an acknowledgement of the importance of local control in education and that school boards should be in charge and should be able to direct. And I liked that the bill had that. I also liked the way that the bill moved the money around, because what it did was it moved it into state income tax and state sales tax. For most people, that would be a significant savings.
Right.
Now, political reality is political reality.
Unfortunately, yes.
This is an election year. So the numbers in SB 76 if we wind up in the next session, will probably move. Because the gap between what the funding is and what we would need to
Because of that
to make it-
146%
because of the way it's going up.
increase.
That gap is going to grow, which means the numbers are going to have to change.
Sure.
And so when we talk about this topic, to say this is exactly going to be the number is probably not true.
Right.
It also tells us why this election is so important, because the longer we wait to fix it,
The worse it gets.
the worse it gets. It almost gets to the point where it becomes impossible to fix. That the gap, the whole system will cave in on itself if we don't do something about it. And that's important for people to know. It doesn't go on forever and ever. So I like that it moves it to an income tax, sales tax, because remember we talked about people see income tax.
Sure.
So it's easier to hold the state accountable because you see it in every paycheck. What are you doing with that money? I like that it kept the money in a separate allocation. And it was a tighter separate allocation than the transportation fund allocation. It actually creates an educational stabilization fund that is transparent, that allows people to hold the government accountable. We talked about the districts that are stockpiling money. There were also districts that ended the year with a negative fund balance. Now, some of them, one of them at least is under investigation because of how poorly they managed the money. But some of them, it wasn't their fault. The whole economy of that community was in shambles, and the district, of course, dealt with it. So, but right now it's impossible to know from a citizen's point of view, unless I look at 500 different sets of books and then sit down and compare them all. How do I know who's doing what, and what is the status of funding, and how can we stabilize things? This bill, because it's a dollar for dollar match, so it doesn't change the percentages for anybody, but it makes them visible.
Sure. So this is the first step towards true
Exactly.
equitable funding if the legislature wants to take that up in the future. But as under the current system,
It's
probably impossible.
It is, and it's really easy for people who don't want to deal with reality to just be, because it's really hard to ferret it out. So it's very important that things be put on the table. You can't hold government accountable if government isn't transparent. And SB 76 takes a lot of steps toward making how schools are funded and how much money they are spending transparent, because the other side of that is, wait, how much money does that district have, and how much are they getting? And they raised it, so it kind of begins to build some accountability on the both ends of the spectrum into it. And I really, really like that it's doing that.
And I think
that's
the accountability peg is one of the biggest unspoken reasons why there's so much opposition from the legislators themselves. Because right now they have it made. If I can tell you what you need to spend or what you need to buy, but I don't have to pay for it,
Exactly.
the homeowner does, there's no accountability there. So we have these quote-unquote unfunded mandates that are always funded by the local homeowner, but they're not funded by the guys in Harrisburg who are telling us we need to do X, Y, and Z. This would throw it right back in their lap, and they know it, and I think there's a lot of pushback for that reason. And so there's a lot of reluctance, because now if we mandate this pension or Common Core, whatever the case may be,
Somebody else
guess
pays
what? They have to be the guys making the vote to come up with the funding for it. But Peg, thank you very much. We are running out of time. It went by so fast, as it always does when we talk about property taxes. I could use another 2 hours to talk about this. So let's move in again. Let's talk about really quick. If people want to get involved, learn more about Peg Luksik, learn more about your campaign, and of course make a donation, where would they go to do
The
that?
website is PA for Peg, the number 4, PA4Peg.com. All the information you need is there. I do want to tell our viewers, next week it'll be Wednesday, not Monday,
Right.
and we will be talking about Common Core, the testing of Common Core, and data mining. And so it's the natural follow-up to this property tax issue. Let me, and I'll do the close. Let me close. What you always hear when they want more money for education is to say it's for the children. Well, I raise children and you raise children, and every taxpayer out there is raising children. We care about our children. Taking money out of the pockets of parents to put it in the pockets of government is not caring about the children. It is funding a piggy government, and that needs to change, and it needs to change today. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, folks. See you next week, Wednesday, 7 o'clock. We were talking about the education issue, Common Core,
Yes.
and everything related.
Exactly.
So thanks again for tuning in. Hope to see you again next week. And please invite all of your friends. We need to get the word out, and this is the best way to do it. Social media, that's where it's at. Thank you, folks.
Good night.